Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Comedy on Power Talk, thank you so much for making us part of your day today. And I guess since last summer, I've sort of been getting my sea legs back as it relates to live communal music. But then last fall, I started to attend these shows by a band, Mapache, and they're known as an acoustic duo, but they added a rhythm section, electric rhythm section to the band, and I really, it fundamentally changed my whole life. And I mean, I've had a lot of stuff that's changed my life, but I have become manic about this group in so many ways. I loved Mapache as an acoustic band, but adding the rhythm section has given a lot of sort of elasticity and bounce. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of new songs, and I get a chance today to speak to a guy who is a fascinating bass player. He seems to, well, he's a huge head as it relates to musical knowledge and that kind of stuff, but when it comes to playing the bass, he clearly has an organic style to it. I think I remember asking him in passing about his philosophy as it relates to music, and he said, I don't even really know what notes I'm going to play next. And so the music is kind of coming through him. And those are the kind of musicians that I love the most, because not just because of the unpredictability of it, but also because they probably have the most room to grow on the bandstand. And he's already an accomplished musician with Alalas, a great band out of Los Angeles. And we're all just hoping that gigs will come back fast and furious, and we can turn the corner here away from the dark into the light. Spencer Dunham, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Well, thank you for having me, Jake.
It's an
It's
honor
an
to
honor to be on.
it's an honor to have you, brother. I did a little bit of background today, and I just was wondering if you could talk a little bit about. I know you had a gig at Amoeba Records, and I just wanted to know, like, what styles or genres of music you were unfamiliar with before you got the gig, and then how you got hip to it once you got the gig.
Um, I guess when I got the gig, I was about 22, and I was kind of into like indie bands and like some older music too. Um, and then I started working there, and my job there was I was doing this role called case switching, which is where people would bring in their used CDs to sell for credit or for money,
Sure.
and the buy counter would take these big bins of all the CDs that they would buy, and then they would bring it up into the warehouse, which is where I worked, and I would just kind of put the old CDs that were all grimy into fresh, new plastic jewel cases. So I just saw I was just kind of, doing this warehouse sorting job, and it was really nice for me because any CD that looked interesting or I was somewhat familiar with, I could just pop on the CD player. So I got a chance to listen to pretty much any kind of music I wanted to at that job. Um, so yeah, I got into various other genres. I know you're a big jazz fan, and I got into some jazz while I was working there. It was cool because you could just ask the people who worked in those sections, like, "Oh, if I like this CD, what should I check out?" And they would just, yeah, yeah. I had been kind of collecting, buying vinyl records at that point, and I was still buying records at that time. My job was just, sorting through CDs, which I also listened to and then would download onto my computer. And so yeah, I was into vinyl, and some of the records I played in Brooklyn, I had gotten there, like that Jeremy Steig record and the Freddie Hubbard record. The first jazz record that I really got hooked into was Breaking Point by Freddie Hubbard.
Dude, that's an
Um,
abstract album, dude.
well, the song Blues Frenzy is pretty straightforward, and that
Wow.
that song is just really. a good example of the kind of jazz that I like still very melodic and not too, um, I don't know how,
Free?
just not like super Ornette Coleman. Yeah, not like free jazz Ornette Coleman, which I like, but I'm more into the kind of melodic Donald Byrd um, kind of stuff. Like
Bl-
Donald Byrd is
yeah, go ahead.
one of my favorite
Dude,
jazz
he has
artists,
been
and he has
keeping me. I have to send. I'm going to send you this. You may be already hip to it, but somebody in like in 1973, which is my favorite year in live, well, in music in general, at the Jazz Workshop. There were radio broadcasts, local, of all the bands that would come through there. So Charles Lloyd and Larry Coryell in the 11th House, and Donald Byrd's band came in with the Blackbirds, and dude, it is the most. They do it. They open the show with a 26-minute jam. It is and it is the most burning stuff I've ever heard. That dude, I mean, he blew my mind. I will send you that show after we get off the air. But I just Blues Frenzy, the melodic tendencies of that. So I don't actually know that song. I've interviewed the drummer Joe Chambers a couple times on that album. And but would you say that you are a self-taught? And can you just talk a little bit about your propensity to like how you learn music?
um I mean, mostly I learn music playing with other people. So uh, with Mapache, a lot of the bass lines I've practiced on my own a little bit, and then uh, we'll get together and then we'll jam and I'll play something similar to what's on the recordings, and then if it's a new song that hasn't been recorded yet, I'll figure out something that goes hopefully well with it. Mostly together with the band is when I feel like I'm learning most. I started playing guitar when I was in high school, and then um, went shortly after high school. I was working at Amoeba, and I was in college, and I met Pedram Siadation, who is in Allah's, and we started playing together at my parents' house, and he played guitar and I played guitar, and there was a drum set in the basement, and it was like, oh well, we should, if we're gonna try to play music together, like we should get a band. Would you want to play bass? And I was like, I could probably play bass. So that's when I got a bass, and um, that's yeah. But that was a long time ago.
Well, but
So
this
I've
is
kind
where the rubber
of
meets the road. I mean, this is so. Why did you choose? How did you connect with? I'm sorry. Tell me the cat's name again. How did you connect with him? And musically, um, just you were just kind of playing by ear at that point.
well, I met Pedram working at Amoeba, and uh, Matt, our drummer, got me a job there. I went to high school with Matt, and then he introduced Pedram and I to each other because we had similar um, musical interests and stuff. And yeah, that was when I went from playing guitar to playing bass, and we kind of assembled the band with Miles. And and then from there, we just kind of always would try to work on songs together. So that was kind of when I was learning to play bass and stuff, I guess. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no right or wrong answers. I'm just trying to get at this idea of like, do you feel like I don't know what the right word is. I mean, for me, I went to broadcast journalism school, sort of walked away from it. I don't even know what exactly I took away from, um, the academy, so to speak. And I just sort of went off on my own and sort of found my own voice. And I just wonder what it's like for you to measure progress. I mean, it seems like do you, how do you determine if you're getting if you're developing more vocabulary on the bass, or is that something that even is an issue to you? I mean, to me, it's like I'm not into monster chops or technique, but that doesn't necessarily do it for me. It's got to feel good. I'm just curious about how you determine your progress on your instrument.
Well, I mean,
If I come up to you and be like, Spencer, you rock tonight, you're like, okay, I'm doing all right.
no, I'd probably be more insecure about it. Um,
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't know. Like I see so many great bands, and uh, then I can only hear my mistakes sometimes. So I don't know. I guess everyone develops differently, and um, it's really fun playing with Mapache because the songs have such like a natural, um, kind of simple, natural vibe to them where you don't have to do a whole lot on bass to like give the song space to breathe. Um, so yeah, I love playing with the band.
Um, just for the record, you're you're flying out tomorrow for a gig in Utah. How interesting is it? Is Lost, by the way, still a working unit? You guys are still playing?
Yeah, we have some shows coming up later in the year, and we're recording a new record right now.
Just can you talk from a somebody who has been on the bandstand quite a bit? I just can you just talk a little bit about how weird this? At least it feels weird to me. Like I sort of am just I'm like, okay, you have a gig in Brooklyn, then you got a gig in Salt Lake, and I saw like three more shows in May. Mapache's, the Electra, that group, and I just, to me, like, are there new realities that, I mean, just as a journalist, I'd love you to hit me to them, of the live music touring circuit now that you've been sort of, on the bandstand since COVID. Like, are there new realities that have to be accepted by the live music, by the live touring bands? To me, it's like I'm waiting for that 10, 15 show run, and it just seems like there's a lot of sort of, I don't know. It's fascinating to me. I want things to open up, and I just wonder, as it relates to Alalas, or any other projects you have, uh, what is in your mind? What is the new reality as it relates to? I mean, I was reading an article that someone did on Alalas, and you're talking about going to Europe and Coachella and Puerto Rico and Costa Rica. It's like, I mean, that's what it was before COVID. What is it now?
Well, I guess it's always changing. I remember one of the first shows that All did. Actually, it was with Mapache too. It was 20 May 2021. It was in this weird kind of like things are starting to open up, and the show is outside, and the tickets were sold in 6-person pods, and there was like a spray painted circle on
Yes,
the
dude.
lawn.
I didn't go to that, but I remember. Okay, yeah, I love that. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean that from there, from then until like now, there's been incremental changes back towards normalcy. But yeah, as far as I know, international touring is kind of uh, still not really a thing for a lot of bands. There's King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard are
Mm-hmm.
playing some shows in the States, and they're actually staying where I live, and they're coming in next week. So they just had to cancel a whole South American leg of their tour because one or two of the guys got COVID, and they weren't legally allowed to leave the country until. I mean, they just had logistical things. So yeah, some bands are going back to touring internationally. I think there's a lot of hesitation for um, not just bands, but also like venues and booking agents to invest their time into scheduling shows when they can just be canceled. uh, because of, you know, whatever
Yeah, no, I mean,
comes
can you
up.
just talk personally, like how you've? I mean, I feel like you have a lot of different uh, interests in your life, and you have music is not. I guess the really the question I have is that like how hard has it been for you personally? Just because some people, I remember Steve Cropper telling me he's like the younger generations music is so precious. It has to be so perfect. It's their only thing, and in some ways, life is so beautiful that that is such a waste if it's your only outlet. Um, has it been hard for you, or you been able to diversify and grow in other areas? I mean, I know you have this ranch property now. Clay's living out in this monk's hut, or up there, and I'm curious about like personally if you could just talk because your band. I mean, Alas was like fully had like an infrastructure and you had venues and it's all like you just talked about. It's all scattershot. So how have you kept your equilibrium? I know if somebody took the microphone away from me for 2.5 years, or I'd be psychically a little bit devastated. How can you just talk about how you've dealt with it personally?
Well, initially for us, we just wrapped up a solid about 4 months of touring, so we were pretty spent
Fried, yeah.
on travel, and we had two fly in, fly out shows as things were getting like really crazy. Like we played a show in Chicago right before St. Patrick's Day,
Wow.
and it was at like an Irish bar, but it was it was 3 days before St. Patrick's Day or something like that, and they had all the kegs for the weekend or whatever, and the whole staff was like, "Yeah, St. Patrick's Day is canceled, so we don't even know what we're gonna do with this stuff." So we flew home, and then the world got, you know, crazy, and everyone shut themselves indoors. And I actually didn't have a place to live at the time, which was kind of weird. But then everything kind of, I got really lucky, and um, friends were like, "Oh, you can stay at my place because I'm staying at another place," or things like things just kind of happened really lucky for me. So we were kind of burnt out, and then we had a good solid chunk of time to just relax. So I gotta say I'm wasn't negatively affected as so many other people were because I was kind of ready to take a break.
Absolutely, but I mean, now are you kind of ready to jump back into the stream again? I totally get. I mean, I think the amount of work that was going on. I mean, nobody was getting rich, but I mean, everybody was working their ass off before. I mean, are you just like it's just what I'm saying. Like, it's hard to get your hopes up and then not be able to sort of. I guess are you ready to just jump back into the ocean again?
In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. I mean, uh, touring with Mapache is real fun because it's like a new project
Right.
that um, I can just kind of play bass in and help the guys with what they need help with, and um, it's a little bit low pressure. And then touring with all the lads, there's a bit more familiarity with like how everything's gonna work out. So in some ways, I'm ready to get back into it. And then you were saying earlier, I don't actually own this ranch, but my friend owns it, and I live on this property, and I really like it here. So in some ways, I'm kind of happy to have the time at home when I have it.
Ah, dude, I mean that this place just sounds majestic, man. It's unbelievable. Spencer, we have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I don't pay attention to the voice, but pay attention to the content, and we'll come back and break it down.
Part of it was that this arts magnet high school I went to in Dallas, when I got there, there was a keyboard ensemble at the school. I think there still is.
Jeez.
And, there was like tons of sick gear in there. There's like a mini Moog and all these like, clavinets, Thunder Rhodes, like
oh my God,
all these amazing instruments. And then the people, the older kids there totally hipped me to like the Headhunters and Weather Report and
exactly.
like Return to Forever and these fusion bands, and that was it for me. I got way stoked about it and really into those sounds, and they've just stuck with me since then. But yeah, that's the basic gist.
I mean, you want to take a guess at who that is? I'm fairly sure that. I think you're pretty good friends with him. I know that you've shared bills with him.
Yeah, this is my good friend Frank Lacrasto.
Dude, you have huge ears, man. That you 1-for-1, Dunham. Holy cow! Yeah, that was Francis Lacrasto. Can you talk about how you guys connected? I just remember my buddy Evan saying, "Oh yeah, Lacrasto's band is opening for Alalas." This is before the pandemic, so I was like, "Okay, so they're connected." Can you talk about how you met Frankie, man? I miss the guy so much, and he's just a classic. Not only just a beautiful player, but an awesome human being.
Yeah, so Frank opened up for us at Union Pool 2 nights in, I don't know, maybe, kind of forget when it was.
Feels like 2019 or something,
ago. Yeah, that sounds about right. And yeah, I think it was a 3-piece or something.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Drums and I think maybe bass, yeah.
I remember the first night I actually missed a set, and I came back and all my friends were like, "Dude, did you see the opening band? They were so good." And then the next night I made sure to get there early, and yeah, I was just blown away, and we've been in touch ever since. And actually, I'm part of this label called Calico Discos, and Calico Discos is going to be releasing Frank Lacrasto's forthcoming album.
Are you kidding me?
It'll be under his alias Columbo, and it's really good.
Can you talk about really how did this label? What's your capacity? How did you get hooked up with this label? Tell me a little bit more about it, because I know he was. Well, it's hard to keep track of independent labels, but can you talk a little bit more about how you got involved with this label?
So the Alalas were trying to figure out if we should start manufacturing our own records and how that would work. And one of the things that we wanted to do was put out our keyboard player and friend Tim Hill's record. So we started this label, and we released Tim's record, and from there we started kind of getting more music together from other artists, and redeveloping our relationship with the label Innovative Leisure. And so now we're working with Innovative Leisure to release Mapache's upcoming record, and then another Tim Hill record, and Columbo as well.
Can you just talk, when you say release, like what does that entail? Like with Tim's record, or, I mean, in the past, like, you would, Joni Mitchell would go on a 40-city tour, or James Taylor promote a record, and they lose money on the tour, and then the record company would just write it off because they were making so much money just selling vinyl, and that was when there was a commerce-based record industry. What does it mean to just put out an album today? Like, what are the things that come with it that that help the artist? Is it merely just the idea of pressing the album, or is there other ways that labels? I'm just naive to it, man, but it just doesn't, like, the infrastructure was so strong back in the day. Um, like I said, I mean, the touring apparatus was already there, and no matter whether Cat showed up to the gigs or not, it didn't even matter.
Well, as far as I can say from our experience putting out, records, it's uh, kind of operate as a business bank and communications operation. So you just invest money in the manufacturing and time in the correspondence, and then hire people for publicity and organize merchandise and that kind of stuff.
Can you
So
just talk a little bit specific?
I don't know how you
Yeah.
make money off of it, but I know how you spend money on it. So
So I mean, so that's the thing, is that is there, but there has to be some sort of budget built in, but the budget is all for sort of extemporaneous things. It's not, has nothing to do with, it doesn't go to, you have to pay publicists, you have to do, but there is some kind of budget there to at least address the, the manufacturing and the merchandise and that kind of stuff.
yeah, so Calico Discos has allotted like a budget for Frank's record and everything that is involved with that, and yeah, we have a contract with him, and um, hopefully we do a good job in releasing it, and then he gets exposure and his music is well received, and uh, yeah, and then hopefully, I don't know, gets in some movies or something like that.
What is the, can you just talk about an album that you, doesn't matter what label it got released on, but a project that you were on that actually, yeah, like you said, like, the hope is that, because Frankie does a lot of, stuff related to, soundtracks or things that could be in movies and things like that. I mean, can you talk about your own time when you actually sort of got an album into some kind of pipeline where it got some, not maybe, didn't sell, wasn't a gold record, but I mean, it got some play, it got tapped in somewhere. To me, it's like almost flying blind to try to do that. I mean, my own show is a perfect example of that. I mean, it just, you put up interviews with, people, like I just did a couple interviews with John Schofield, and I'll get a little bit of a bump. I mean, not monetarily, but just in terms of listenership. And then you'll see other people tap into other interviews that maybe were already posted before, but it's really kind of scattershot. Can you talk about an experience that where an album that you took part in that found its way into some kind of vein that where it got some buzz?
I guess our first record got quite a bit of buzz and stuff. We were once, or we were asked to perform in a movie. It was like a Jennifer Gardner movie.
Get out of here! Get out of here, dude! Wait, I need the backstory on this, please.
I forget what it's called. Oh, it's called something Day. It's like where it's like an Netflix movie where the kids get to do whatever they want on like one day a year or something. But yeah, I think we got paid pretty decent for that. I know that I actually wasn't there. My friend Tim Hill stepped in and acted like he was playing bass. Um,
It's called Yes. It's called
I know
Yes Day, right?
Yes Day.
Yes Day. Oh
Yes
my
Day.
God! This is we saw. I'm sorry. Uh, the band was called, and you were going to go in and take us through the. I know you didn't show up, but I mean, what? How did you even get the call?
So, it actually was filmed January 2020, and I was getting kind of kicked out of where I was living in Hollywood at the end of 2019, like December 31st. So I decided to book a trip to Costa Rica.
Oh, that's
And
great.
then I don't know, maybe sometime in like November or October, we got asked to do this movie, and I didn't want to cancel my trip, so everyone else just hung out, and they got paid, whatever an actor gets paid, like SAG day rate. So I think everyone, I don't know, like even when your song is like played in a movie, I feel like the money can go real quickly. You pay tax on it, and then it's a little bit less, and then you split it up, and then it's less, and then it's gone, and then it's you kind of need to find another way to.
Well, I'm going to buy that movie, and I'm gonna be playing that. I want a royalty. So you're saying because you decided to, do you guys see royalties? Are you part of that deal, or because you went to Costa Rica?
Yeah. No, I'm still like part of the deal, I guess, but I just don't know if it like it's hard to say how much royalties are coming from that movie.
Well, again, if it was like Star Trek or Batman, and where it was on Netflix, getting paid, if it was getting played all the time, you'd probably be getting a lot of money. I know a lot of cats that the movies are the best royalties to make. I mean, but that is absolutely hysterical. I mean, you were what was so captivating about Costa Rica? Was it like surfing or ayahuasca, or what was going on down there?
No, I just really wanted to start 2020 fresh. And
I love it. Well, then we got hit by COVID, man.
Well, yeah, this is pre-COVID being really a thing.
Oh, totally. That didn't hit till That didn't hit till St. Patrick's Day. You got a couple months in.
Yeah. So I just I moved all my stuff in storage, and then left the country at like the beginning of the month and came back, and then we toured in Australia and New Zealand, and then we came back and we played a couple shows in like Aspen and Chicago, and then everything shut down. So the whole first part of the 2020 was pretty nice for me. I got a couple vacations in.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, were you sad to lose the property in Hollywood, or was that just sort of right place, right time kind of thing?
Yeah, I was very happy to get out of that place. I'd been there for a long time. It was like a shitty rent controlled house that had a lot of problems.
I mean, you talk being from the City of Angels. I just wonder, is it the best and worst thing that you have going for you, or is it all good? I mean, to me, like it's a very magical place. I've had some incredible times out there. There's always a lot of hip people, and yet there's also a lot of I don't know what the right word is. It just there's a lot of charlatans, and there can be drama, and it can, if you're not careful, you could park your car to check into a hostel, and the next thing you know, the you're getting your car towed. It's like it's kind of it can be a little bit insane. And cats like, I mean, just because they had restrictive policies, because of COVID, and rightfully so, people like, Darren Rademacher bounced to Florida. And I just wonder if it's, obviously you moved to this property, but I just wanted you to talk about, what's the hardest thing about being from the City of Angels?
The hardest thing,
Well, you were talking. I was reading this article, and you were like, it's like the seminal moment is getting your license, and that comes with a car. Then you can be driving everywhere. And you were just talking in very fantastic, very high positive terms about it. But I mean, now it's like it's hard. I know you don't live there right now, but is it just like, have you ever considered other places in the world that uh, you would want to live?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the hardest things about living in LA is just being able to afford it. There's so many people with regular jobs that have salaries that can afford the decent places to live. And so uh, you just kind of get priced out of a lot of this the spot. I don't that I would say that's the hardest thing about living in LA because rent is just so crazy expensive, and um, I've kind of always found little rent loopholes in my life. And then when you say
Yeah,
where
what is
else could
that?
I live?
What is that? Are you good a negotiator? I mean, I want to find those loopholes, man.
um, yeah, but the only other place I've lived was Portland, and I lived there because I could transfer a grocery store job that I had up there and
What a great place to live.
afford.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And that was like 2006 when you know $300 a month was uh, like a standard kind of rental thing.
Well, going back to Alalas,
Uh,
like when you started the group, I mean, when you go back to like the LA was, I don't know, everything's kind of exploded real estate wise in the last 10, 15 years. Did you guys like kind of wind up, um, I guess maybe the question is, were you able to like live together at one time you said that first album kind of took hold a little bit, but what was like I don't want to say the break, but what got you into some kind of pipeline of touring and that kind of stuff? And did it have anything to do with the fact that you were able to actually, you could afford to live in Los Angeles? I mean, now it's completely unrealistic, but even at the beginnings of Alalas, was there, I'm not saying it was like Haight Ashbury with Jefferson Airplane and the Dead, but was there something along those lines where you guys were able to really just focus on the art itself and not be overly concerned about how you're going to keep up with the cost of living?
um, yeah, it was definitely a struggle, and I mean, the places I lived in Echo Park, and it was $300 across the street from Little Joy, and then I lived in Hollywood for like 12 years, and that was like many much of the time there I was paying less than $500,
And
and
these loopholes that Dunham finds is incredible.
and
I love it.
and like our drummer Matt, he had a place that was affordable in Mount Washington, and then he moved out of it, and he ended up living at his parents' house for quite a while because we were just always gone. Um, and yeah, so I mean, everyone's kind of found ways, but at that when we started as a band, which I think was 2008, um, there was more of a like a way to find cheap places to live through like friends and networks like that. Whereas I think now it's just the online market is the great equalizer, and money is the only thing that really matters.
Oh man, I mean that is, I couldn't you just, that was poetry in motion right there. I mean, so, and you are right now situated, I mean, the ranch is like geographically, like how close are you to, Ventura or LA? Is it, where are you exactly? And yeah, I mean, like, because that to me is like, you get out of the urban jungle, you're not getting destroyed with cost of living. I mean, obviously you have space, you can breathe, so there's a lot of cool stuff there. But I mean, are you still like, you're not like way out so that it's impossible to get to gigs, or it's not overly inconvenient?
I mean, it's far to get to practice if we're practicing in downtown LA or something like that. But Yeah, it's manageable. Where the ranch is about, it's technically in Ventura County,
Hmm.
but it's about it's about 45 minutes from Santa Monica and about 20 minutes from Oxnard.
Yeah, I love Oxnard. So I mean, and you are spending the majority of your, like, I mean, is what's the closest airport? You're going to be flying out to Salt Lake from L.A., or where are you flying out from?
Yeah, from LAX, which is kind of close to where my dad lives, so pretty easy and convenient to.
I have one more voice to play for you, sir, and then we'll come back.
No, I believe that music, to me, brings a lot of, the real reality of life to me. And, I don't see materialism as being the cosmic connection in
No,
life. you know,
that's
uh,
exactly that's about as simply brilliantly put as I've ever heard in my life. Yeah, I don't think that brings cosmic joy.
Yeah, I think we definitely know that we are, uh, linked to a higher source. Let me put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think we know that things as we see them as physical things are here, and they are really a it's kind of generated. You know what I mean? Like we generate something.
Mm-hmm.
So a car is a generated object. A house is a generated object. It's not something that's ordained. You see. So we look at life as sometimes people who are into materialism look at generated life. It's something that's not really ordained. You see, and I believe in ordained, and music is ordained. It's not generated. We generate it through synthesizers and everything, and maybe through programs and software. But the real soulful music is an ordained thing, and to get to it, we have to be submissive. We have to believe from our heart and our soul that we are just a little conduit. You see, everything else is already existing. We are tuning in.
Hmm. Spencer, this is a pretty cosmic thing. So I just remembered that the other place that I saw you guys was at Moe's Alley in Santa Cruz, Mapache, and there were this delightful Indian son and father in the crowd, and I was obviously completely out of my mind having a ball, and we were talking to them, and they they talked about this guy Ashwin Batish, who's a teacher up at UC Santa Cruz, and his dad, same generation as Alu Raka and Ravi Shankar and Ali Akbar Khan, and Ashish is an electric sitar player and a really badass musician in general. And I connected with him on that trip, and so we did a couple of interviews. And I really, this goes over a lot of people in our society because we get into fame and yeah, I mean, we just talked about it. We've been talking about it. This idea of greed, the greed factor, out of control, and yet the music that I gravitate to and the musicians that I gravitate to, yeah, they were born. They were lucky. I mean, they weren't born on the streets. They weren't on Skid Row. I mean, they've had blessings in their lives, but the thing that I gravitate to, especially with Clay and Sam, especially, it's just they're doing it for the love of music, the ordained love of music. They're not doing it for a pay. I mean, everybody would like to get a good money, and that's what I'm about. And I just wanted to know, like, if you remember a time or, in your own career where you surrendered to the music itself and just sort of dropped that idea of, I mean, what were your, have you ever had, what were your intentions for getting into music? And I guess talk to the audience about how you've learned to surrender to the music and kind of get out of your own way and your own ego.
Hmm. Um, yeah, I guess jamming with friends is kind of the most often time that I've been in an experience where you kind of see something developing and you try to make decisions to allow every piece of the composition to shine. Um, yeah, that's a pretty deep
No,
question.
I appreciate it. I mean, this is what I mean, finally, we're getting somewhere. You know, I mean, like basically, do you feel? I mean, some people would be like dismissive of it, but I mean, I'm completely into the ordained quality of music. I mean, that to me is like that to me. You guys are healers in some way, you know, and I just wonder if that. Um, and you know, we have all this technology today that allows for perfection and to create synthetic music. And there's a place for that. I mean, that's a cool thing. But I mean, when you talk about jamming with friends and sort of things coming together organically, I mean, can you give an example of it? Did that kind of go down at the recent session you guys had at that place in where was Stinson Beach with Mapache? I mean, was it kind of, can you give an example of that ability to sort of create spontaneously because of the trust and the love between, and because you trust people that you're playing with?
Um, I think this kind of answers your question, but so there's been times musically where I have vivid memories of when a song kind of formed at like a place in time. I'll be like, oh, I remember playing that song like on that guitar or in that room or wherever. And then years later, playing it in front of an audience that has like a very visceral reaction.
Right.
Um, and so I think that like with your question about did that happen at Stinson? I mean, I think I I'm sure it did, but to realize like how special a song can be, you kind of have to wait for it to be either played live or enjoyed by other people. And some, you know, the space and time between kind of the origin and the reception uh, kind of allows for it to be realized whether it's special or maybe it's not.
Did you ever call? I mean, being from LA, did you always find yourself going to the beat of your own drum? Did you ever get hooked it onto materialism? We all like to think of ourselves as very um, you know enlightened, people that don't need a lot of commodities and things like that. But it's hard. I mean, competition breeds that kind of stuff. Were you ever a materialistic cat, or have you always been a man of the earth, a grasscloth man?
um,
I gotta find out where that came from. By the way, I mean, I don't know where that name came, but anyway, go ahead. I mean, was there? Did you ever have to deal with that with maybe your folks, or like growing up in some kind of society, like community where everybody was just getting getting sports cars in high school, and you're like, this doesn't feel right, man.
I I feel like I kind of err on the side of non-materialistic.
I
I'm not
love it, dude.
a man of
Yeah.
the um, sports cars and things like that. But I've never had enough actually have those kind of things. So I don't know. I've kind of always been sort of non-materialistic, even though I have a lot of records and things like that. But um, to answer your other question, the grass cloth
Yeah, please.
nickname kind of thing. Uh, so my dad hung wallpaper, and I used to hang wallpaper with him, like kind of after I quit Amoeba and like before I could um, financially support myself through the band. I was working with my dad, just hanging wallpaper, and we hung a lot of grass cloth, which is a wallpaper that's like natural fiber.
Dude, I
And
got to get some of that
that's
stuff,
kind of
man.
when,
I thought it was like a wardrobe kind of thing or something. That is so unbelievable.
yeah,
Uh,
it's pretty cool.
I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to run through the 4 L's of my program with Spencer Dunham. It's such an honor to have him on the program. Leadership. You know, what are the strongest qualities of leadership in your mind on the bandstand?
On the bandstand leadership.
Or even hanging wallpaper. I mean, who was the best leader you've? Maybe it was your dad. I'm just, we have a crisis in leadership today. A lot of cats, it's my way or the highway kind of stuff. I'm just curious what you think the best qualities of leadership are. Maybe somebody that you really, who was a great leader for you.
I'd have to say my friend Robbie Combs is a solid leader in a number of ways.
Talk
He,
about the number of ways.
well, he's always kind of done right. He's also our band's manager, and I've known him for a long time, and he's always just uh, been on our side and done right by us and worked hard so that things were smooth for us. So,
You're talking about Al-Alas's manager.
yeah.
So fairness, just not taking advantage of you guys, or just always being equitable and always looking out and having your back. On the bandstand, what do you try to do to, not that you're the figurehead of the band or even the leader of it, but what do you think some of the strongest qualities of leadership on the bandstand are, especially after, you go back in the time machine and you think back to 4 months on the road, and after a couple months you guys are all pretty burned out, and yet you still have to go into that reservoir of soul to find that energy to inspire yourself so that you can inspire the audience. I mean, that takes leadership. Can you talk a little bit about, something that a quality that you've found to be useful?
I'm kind of stumped by this question.
Yes, dude. Yes. No, I'm kidding.
Up,
That's okay. Think about it. I mean, I'm just, it's gonna dawn on you at a gig really soon. You'll be like, oh, that's a good quality leadership. So, don't worry about it. I want Spencer Dunham's the second L. Please talk to the audience about your concept of love. And this is something that you've always been very good at. Have you had to work on this to a degree? Or is that something that's just sort of part of your true nature? I know for me, like in my best moments, in my true nature, that plays out, but my habitual nature sometimes takes me back to, anxiety or control or things like that. Is it stuff that you're able to channel pretty easily in your day-to-day life?
Sometimes I feel like everyone struggles with it, but I feel like I tend to have a pretty good ability to understand other people's point of views. Try to, at least.
The third L is lineage, and what I mean by that is just the idea of, in your playing, being that you, going back to the start of the conversation at Amoeba, having all that access to all that different music, did you have an influence in terms of bass players, in terms of the lineage of your playing? Or was there another instrument that you actually? Who were some of the musicians that you can look back on and say, definitively, I begged, borrowed, and stealed from them to find my own sound?
Um, I mean, there's a lot of, music that I grew up with listening to, like classic rock on the radio or Motown and stuff like that. So the bass players like Carol Kay and James Jamerson were always had great
Fantastic, dude.
taste
Oh,
for
that's great.
bass.
Yeah.
If they play. And then, Safe as Milk, the Captain Beefheart album. I
Yeah.
forget the guy's name who played bass on that, but that record so good, just all around. And then, um, yeah, I don't know. I always just kind of liked um, bass musicianship that really fit well with the song.
I'm looking here. This guy named Jerry Handley played bass. I think that on the Beefheart album. Um,
I don't know if he played
yeah, I don't
like
know.
in other projects, picking it up once and not being able to find much.
Totally. No, I mean, were there any like upright players, jazzers that you? I mean, not that you're trying to emulate them, but I just find myself during these times, at least once a day, if I can, throwing on. I have a Roland Sack analog tape recorder in my room, and so I throw on Love Supreme. I have that on cassette, and Jimmy Garrison is just, it's phenomenal to listen to his playing. Were there any upright player, maybe like Ray Brown or any of the jazzers that you loved?
I listened to some Mingus for a while.
Hmm.
I feel like Charles Mingus is one of the only upright bass players I can think of right now.
I dig. So Jamerson, Carol Kay, and Mingus, and then you're kind of in your own realm, You've kind of found your own little voice there, which is beautiful. The final L. This could be another question that, well, we'll see what happens. It's life, and what I mean by life is overcoming adversity. And I just wanted you to talk about a time in your life, does not have to be in music, where you were really facing a lot of adversity, how you overcame it, and how it made you a stronger person. Take your time, man. No, like Steve Gadd. Guy was on top of the world. Major studio session cat, was so junked out of his mind, he lost everything. He had to leave New York City. He had to go into rehab. His wife at the time, he couldn't see his kids, got cut off from everything. And in some ways, it saved his life. And luckily, he had friends in the biz that let him come back in. And obviously, he's still, knock on wood, he's still kicking ass today. And I'm not saying that's the kind of example, but kind of in that vein, I don't know. I mean, was there ever a time in your life where you just were kind of lost, or something was going down, but yet you're still here, and grass cloth is thriving at this point,
Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of a time of adversity that's really strong at the moment. Not that I haven't like struggled with, I don't know, relationships or
Well, I mean, you're lucky then. I
whatever.
mean, you're really lucky if I mean, that to me is like,
Extremely lucky.
I mean, that's
Luckiest.
to me, like, luck is the residue of design. That was a Branch Rickey line, the manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers, I think. But I mean, the truth is that, like, it's better to be lucky than good sometimes, man. And we just blew through an hour here, man. I really, it's really, you guys have been, you and, oh, by the way, can you tell me why you like playing with Didalo as a drummer?
so many reasons. Killer drummer, great taste, super open to changing anything. Great
Dude, he's
skill.
open to everything, man.
Um, yeah, I don't know. He's super fun to play with.
Well, I just want to say, like, it has been just because we've just been holed up for so long, and it's been so great to see you guys, and seeing you in that packed venue in Brooklyn was. I mean, there were people there that friends of mine that I was with that had never seen Mapache before, even in the acoustic setting, and people were just like. I mean, you guys were raising the vibration. To me, it's like all the essential elements of live music you guys are really tapping into. And I not only do I want to thank you, I just hope that there'll be some substantial touring going on, and that not only that, there'll be some real momentum behind, like you said, records in the pipeline and tours and things like that. And for everything, man. And I look forward to getting up to that ranch and where you're at some point too, just to decompress, man. It sounds like an awe-inspiring place.
Yeah, well, we'll be passing through. You the one in Tucson?
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Yes.
I think Mapache has some plans to be passing through Tucson.
Again, I keep hearing that. I just got this thing on Instagram where it was like I was May, and it was like San Luis Obispo, like 3 shows. I was like, "Where's Tucson, man?" So I mean, it's maybe the summer or something like that.
Yeah, not in May, but I think in June or July.
Well, you guys are coming over, and we'll have a barbecue and we'll have a ball, man. Much love to you, Spencer, man. I'm glad we were able to do this. And are you just playing one night in Salt Lake, or what's how long is? Go ahead.
Yeah, just one night. We're playing at the Salt Lake Metro Music Hall, Salt Lake City.
We'll have a ball and be safe, and I'll see you on down the road, man. Much love to you, brother.
All right, much love to you too. Thanks for having me, Jake.
Always, man. Be cool.
All right, take care.
Peace. Later. The elusive Spencer Dunham, now in the books. It was a great hang. We love Mapache here on the Jake Feinberg Show, acoustic and electric forms. That's it. We'll be back later this week. Until then, take it easy. Peace.